This is part 2 episode 166. Bayu couldn't like Kia anymore. Especially now that Kia's memories were back, she was no longer the cold saint daughter of Samsara of that time, and behaved charmingly in front of the eyes of Houchen's parents. In front of Long Xingyu and Bayu's tearful faces, her own face was brimming with a smile of happiness. Looking at the son, future daughter-in-law, and wife in front of his eyes, Long Xingyu suddenly turned his head, wiping once again the tears on his face. He seemed unaware his fists were clenched, with his right fist thumping his own chest with force. As tears of regret filled his eyes, he turned to face his back to Long Houchen and the eyes of all three. A large hand came onto his shoulder. "Father, what's up? Isn't our family now gathered? Let past remain as past. See, you have so much white hair already. You have to be sure to take better care of yourself, or else you won't match mother." Long Xingyu slightly lowered his head, his voice still choking. "Child, these years you have been missing must have been very painful." Long Houchen let out a chuckle. "There's no such thing. We have only had a fortunate encounter, after slaying the panther demon god. Everyone has been training in seclusion, and went in a state of deep meditation, which is why we have all taken so long to come back. Otherwise, we would rather have returned as early as possible." Long Xingyu suddenly turned his head to look at him. Seeing the warmth carried onto Long Houchen's smile, he could feel the purity of light from his son. "You are not speaking the truth." Long Xingyu watched his son, his eyes flickering, as if wanting to say something, but still bearing it in the end. Long Houchen reacted with some shock. "Father, are you all right?" Long Xingyu shook his head, and forced a smile on his face. "Oh, you're right. Let past remain as past. We should look ahead for the future. No matter the trials you have faced, you will always be this Long Xingyu's son. This thing won't ever change. Let us, parent and son, fight demonkind alongside each other." Bayu couldn't help laughing now. "You have been repeating that Houchen is your son many times already, Xingyu. Do you still need to keep insisting?" Long Xingyu's expression froze as he glanced at Bayu. Complicated emotions filled his eyes. But it very rapidly came back to normal. "It may be because I have not seen my son for too long. It still feels unreal even now." Bayu took Kia's hand. "I'm only concerned about when it is that Kia will really become my daughter-in-law." Long Houchen and Kia's expressions reddened at the same time, and the instant their glances crossed each other, Kia immediately lowered her head yet again. Long Houchen laughed gently. "Father, mother, if you both agree, let's make the trip to the Exorcist Mountain Pass. In this area, marriage proposals were to come from the parents' generations. Both parties would hang out together, before seeking for their parents' blessings to formally conduct their wedding." Kia hesitantly responded. "Houchen, we still have a lot going on. No need to rush." Houchen smiled. "That won't do. I've had this matter in my mind for too long. And even if we don't rush, Yinga, Yuan and the crew would be rushing. They are no longer as young. The new union has just formed, so there are really a lot of matters going on. But in some ways, I am just a nameplate as the union's chairman. The union's matters are handled under grandfather and temple head Li's responsibilities. Our priority is to progress in strength in order to be able to challenge the demon god emperor, and those peak demon powerhouses in a short future. After our currently most pressing matters are taken care of, we should have a time of tranquility. At that time we will conduct our wedding. This way it should be about time for the others to get settled as well. And when family matters are done with, we should strive for cultivating together without delay." Bayu nodded continuously. "Even if you're even busier, you cannot neglect the major events in life. Looks like it's settled. Let's head over for the Exorcist Mountain Pass to propose marriage in a bit." Long Xingyu's emotions having stabilized, a smile was now on his face. "Speaking of which, I have not met Lingxin for years." In some meaning, Kia's father could be considered half a disciple for Long Xingyu, whom he gave quite a bit guidances in the past to. After a short pause, Long Xingyu declared, "Houchen, I know that your innate talent is number one out of several thousand years of the Night Temple's history. I know clearly about your goal. But remember well, if it won't do, don't be overly forceful. Any of the divine thrones can bestow you with enough formidable power. It need not necessarily be the divine throne of eternity and creation. Long Houchin responded, "Father, I won't shrink back. I believe that I have the ability. If even I cannot succeed, then I'm afraid that the divine throne of eternity and creation won't ever find an owner." Long Houchin said so smilingly. In ordinary times, his formidably peaceful endeavor became full of an incomparable confidence. Right, if he turns out unable to earn the approval of the divine throne of eternity and creation, that would only prove that this original divine throne would actually be no being of light. Long Xingyu's eyes glimmered. Good. I expected no less from this Long Xingyu's son. Your father is expressing you his best wishes ahead of time. Long Houchin smiled, and please plan out the Golden Foundation Knight's trial for Yang Wenjiao and Duan Yi. It's just a shame that even if they manage to break through the 9th step, there may not even be some divine thrones left for them to attempt getting picked. In case Long Houchin, Han Yu and Zhong Fangfang all succeed, they will have accomplished the unprecedented feat of bestowing all the Night Temple's 6 divine thrones with owners. If this really comes true, humankind's morale will reach an unprecedented peak in history. Long Xingyu smiled about that. There is no need for you to worry about that. When you all grow, our divine thrones will someday have to be passed on. You must have had a tiring trip to go back there, so rest early. I already have a room prepared for you. But to Long Houchin's unexpectedness, Long Xingyu really had a place prepared for Kia and him to stay, but that was a single room. Ever since back when Kia had lost her memories, the two of them hadn't shared a room. First because of Kia's memory loss, and next because they were already all grown, no longer youths like in those times. Long Houchin was also afraid of being unable to control himself before they would get formally married. That was a large, comfortable room. But when standing inside, Long Houchin and Kia couldn't help but blush upon looking at each other, especially when seeing only that one large bed. Clearly, Long Xingyu and Bai Yu were thinking that they would have already crossed this boundary in their teens, and moreover, for them to want to marry so shortly, living together was very normal. Kia lowered her head and joined Long Houchin's side, gently taking off his coat for him, and said in low voice, "I'm going to the bath." Hearing her mumbling words, Long Houchin immediately felt a difference. Scratching his head, he remained silent. Having deepened their love in those years, and gone through countless life or death experiences, their feelings already reached a fusional level. Although they felt somewhat awkward right now, they didn't have any need to explain themselves. Often making themselves presentable in turns, and recovering a bit from tiredness, Long Houchin sat on the bedside, quite lost in thoughts. But being lost in thought in such way was a form of happiness for him. It felt very cozy to be able to sit calmly without any matter going. This brought him an indescribable feeling of bliss. As he softly raised her hair, Kia's blushing face came to view. Houchin then gave her intensely breathing cheeks a light kiss, and as a faint aroma seeped into his heart, a light tactile sensation came onto her heartstrings. "Kia!" Long Houchin called out gently. As if unwilling to speak, Kia only let out a light sound of response. Holding one of her lily white hands, Long Houchin couldn't help but urge out, "Look at me all right." Kia lightly pushed her head on his chest, as if for protection, but still ended up opening her eyes. Her light purple eyes were a bit hazy, her large eyelashes traced a beautiful arc, and her large eyes with water seeping out seemingly spoke something without words. "Back in those years, when we first arrived in Exorcist City, you made a little house for us then. At that time, I had promised that I would give you a warm home to live in. Although father and mother have already accepted our marriage, I have yet to formally propose to you. I won't ever wrong you, and will make you the happiest person in this world." Saying this, Long Houchin's handsome face was blushing slightly, his eyes looking hazier, as his lips made a light contact with her eyelashes. "Idiot. So early as back when I had put the forget-me-not ring in your hand, I had already given myself to you. As long as I can be together with you, what's feeling wronged once or twice? The path to the future against demonkind is long and broad, and I don't want to keep waiting. I'm afraid that if I get old, I won't be able to give myself to you at the peak of my beauty." Kia's voice was soft as she whispered these words in Long Houchin's ears, and carried faint traces of fragrance that kept assailing Long Houchin's heart. Long Houchen coiled his hand around Kia's waist, with his other hand on her supple hair, as her delicate white face was kept busy staring at him. Four eyes looked at each other, seemingly immersed in the inverted images looking at each other. Lowering his head, Long Houchen made a light contact with Kia's icy lips. A trace of satiny skin appeared in the midst of the soft fabric at her waist, along with light trembling. Upon mere contact, Long Houchen became completely inextricable from the situation. They had already gone through fire and water for over 10 years, having gone through countless unimaginable things. Especially back in the Star Demon Pagoda, where Long Houchen became deceased, and Kia managed to bring him back to life, almost at the cost of her own life. They were no longer just two individuals, but a single thing with two hearts. Tightly hugging each other, and lightly kissing their counterpart, this instant only left satisfaction in them. Several years of love finally bloomed into a flower of extreme beauty. They were deeply connected with each other, this instant completely engrossed in each other. He carried Kia onto the bed, their lips remaining connected from beginning to end. And as Long Houchen's scorching hand carried the lightly shivering Caia, it headed below her nightgown, and onto her slender legs. Warmth, accompanied with a feeling of softness, only made Kia's heartbeat stronger and stronger, but as it went, she still didn't show the slightest resistance. As she slowly drew closer to her man's neck, her love and attachment poured into his heart. As the image of Kia's post-fusion spiritual stove back in the illusory paradise appeared in front of Long Houchen, everything else followed just naturally. In the midst of light murmurs and light whimpers, their love finally ascended to a new level. Long Houchen and Caia were unskilled, but a human's most primary desire and instincts pushed them onto each other. A soft pain and an even larger love kept rising in the midst of this intrication, rising continuously in this mix. Finally, they passed this last threshold of perfect combination in the midst of a strong desire. This was all a bit sudden, but also very natural. With this setup as a basis, everything went as one could expect, as they gradually discovered their respective inexperienced selves, becoming increasingly familiar with each other. They had physical conditions far exceeding ordinary mortals, leading to an even more intense lovemaking. The first rays of sunlight bore through the windows in their room in dragon-resisting mountain pass, as Long Houchen slowly awoke from slumberland. His senses were still a bit hazy, but the next instant, the scenery appearing next in front of his eyes stupefied them. The warm illumination of the sunset shone upon the quilt covering Kia's slender leg, reflecting upon the sparkling gloss. Behind the quilt, a pink gloss was visible on her skin, as if that was a pleasant lingering effect of last night. Then came a hand, which had grabbed Long Houchen's back at some point, carrying some languidness and shyness as it reverberated lightly, "Just go. They should all be waiting for you. I will be waiting here for your triumphant return. No matter what trial awaits, you have to keep in mind that I will be waiting for you to return. In my mind, you are the most important thing that exists." Long Houchen tightened his arm, and let out a low laugh. "Then, let's keep going with what we did yesterday evening when I return, all right?" Kia didn't utter a sound, just pinching Houchen's waist, yet was unwilling to exert strength in the end. Only pulling the opposite quilt, she used it to cover her own head with it. Long Houchen's face was full of a blessed smile, as he lightly turned over the quilt. Yet he couldn't help but lightly pinch her, but before covering her properly using the quilt and declaring tenderly, "Wait for me to come back. Your man will definitely make it to be a divine night." Half an hour later, when Long Houchen appeared in the night temple, Han Yu and Zhong Fangfang were already waiting. Long Xingyu was also waiting there. Seeing Long Houchen, the three of them all looked slightly distracted. Because they discovered, with shock, that Long Houchen's mental force seemed to have made a qualitative leap, as if the entirety of his basic qualities had an earth-shattering change. His originally pure being of light was now brimming with a hardly descriptible vital essence. The energies from his body reached the peak, and in particular, his eyes looked even more sincere and honest, as well as kind. They gave off the feeling that Long Houchen's cultivation had reached the next level just in the span of one night. But they did not understand what kind of trick that could be. Kia had changed into a mild purple-colored skirt, and was seated across the window. It was snowing outside, and snowflakes were fluttering in the breeze in the skies, landing on the window and slowly dissolving. A thin smile traced itself upon the corners of her mouth, as her heart was in peace and bliss. Actually, she understood very clearly that if not for her taking the initiative, Long Houchen would never have asked her at that time. But that was the timing she had chosen. Purifying force was something able to purify any impurity, and as the one chosen by the god of death, she chose this time to make him integral part of nature, so as to purify his everything a step further, while giving him the purest love. Light and purification were originally a perfect match. Her domain and Houchen's formed complementary beings, and the final line of defense between the two of them having gotten crossed meant that their respective auras and domains would blend together. Kia had given herself entirely to her man, for him to now reach an unprecedented peak level. Last night, Long Houchen had only endless love in mind, until this morning. Sensing the changes on his body, he understood the trouble Kia took. But he said nothing, as their mutual understanding made it so that there was no longer any need for words to be exchanged by the two of them since long ago. Similarly, after sensing the moistening of Long Houchen's pure light, the current Kia no longer just looked all smiles. She also had a sense of that sublimation of her light of purification. Suddenly, Caia let out a giggle, and murmured irresolutely, "Shouldn't we, ahead of time? Are you all ready to go?" Looking at the three youngsters sitting across from him, Long Xingyu spoke calmly. The three of them made their salutations to Long Xingyu at the same time. "Senior Divine Knight, we are all ready to go." Although Long Houchen acted as the chairman of the Union, when on the verge of challenging the Divine Knight's trial, he could only be treated as an ordinary knight for the Knight Temple. Long Xingyu nodded. Any Divine Knight's challenge for a Divine Throne's approval is a big matter. Every rank you gain starting from the 9th step will bestow you with another chance for challenge. You should have all seen how many holy knights we have in the temple's great gathering. But there are only 3 of us Divine Knights. During the course of the challenge, you may only rely on your own experiences, and just like your experiences all differ, even the same person won't ever get the same challenge twice. I can only give you one advice: believe in yourselves and advance firmly. Speaking these words, Long Xingyu abruptly stood, as a torrential demeanor gushed out from his body. Although Long Qianying, Yang Haohan and him were all 3 Divine Knights, Long Xingyu was actually the most powerful of these 3, due to being the only Retribution Knight, and moreover, the owner of the Divine Throne of Doom and Slaughter. "Follow me." Long Xingyu commanded the 3 straight toward the depths of the main hall. In there were the statues of the 3 Divine Thrones. Right, just statues, but even so, when Long Houchen's 3 were in front of the 6 Divine Thrones, they couldn't help but feel a mystifying feeling surge out. Facing the 6 Divine Throne sculptures, Long Houchen's gaze was directed at the central one. Compared to the others, that was the least flashy one. Entirely deep black, its tall seat back appeared simple yet steady, giving off a faint feeling of broadness. On the seat back were carved inscriptions of the sun, moon, stars, paintings of birds, flowers, and various vegetations. It all looked meticulous, yet appeared crowded and disorderly. With this, its blackened part appeared all the more inconspicuous. But, around it were another 5 dazzling Divine Thrones. The one that had left on Long Houchen the deepest impression was naturally his father's Divine Throne of Doom and Slaughter. Countless gems were ostentatiously inlaid behind. In its faintest inner part, one could see a Buddha's silhouette. Mighty and dignified, it could even be said to emit a sense of pressure. On the peak of its back, a semicircular scarlet-colored gem was visible, appearing just like the sun overlooking the earth, letting off a might as in doomsday. On what looked like the center of the chest on the front of the throne, the most dazzling part was a reddish-gold rhombus gem. Every corner of it was full of splendor. A bright luminescence shone upon it all around. 2 male lion sculptures were crawling in guard on the broad throne in roaring positions, and countless elegant decorative designs appeared to be flowing throughout the back of the chair. This statue looked simply the same as Long Xingyu's Divine Throne, only in a much shrunken version. Looking at it, Long Houchen couldn't help but stare blackly. Yet such a dazzling Divine Throne of Doom and Slaughter could only serve as a prop for that central pitch-black Divine Throne. 4 other divine thrones were also surrounding that black one. Divine throne of dread and pain. Divine throne of protection and mercy. Divine throne of knowledge and vitality. Divine throne of order and law. Every one of these 5 great divine thrones were dazzling, but they appeared at most only unremarkable when surrounding that central one divine throne. Under their props, that pitch-black divine throne gave off a supreme august and sense of mystery. Just like sheer darkness, it drew out Long Haochen's gaze. Han Yu and Zhong Fangfang were in different situations from Long Haochen's. Their gazes were directed at one respective divine throne for each of the 2. Their expressions also froze. Long Xingyu, standing at the side, did not disturb them. As an experienced person, he understood everything. Every holy knight would, upon arrival there, be attracted by these throne sculptures. And the first divine throne drawing their eye would become their target of choice. Of course, that was due to the divine thrones themselves, as the sculptures were no target of attraction. Truly the divine throne of eternity and creation. When Long Xingyu caught sight of his son's gaze getting caught by that pitch-black divine throne, he couldn't help but sigh secretly. Ever since the start of the Dark Era and the founding of the Night Temple, only 5 people had managed to be qualified to take the challenge of the divine throne of eternity and creation, but they had all without an exception failed. The last time was the Starry Sky Holy Knight Yang Haoyu's challenge. Getting the qualifications to take the challenge was already ample proof of their talent and ability. As for Long Haochen, the 6th challenger of this honor, would he succeed? Long Xingyu unawarely became tense upon this thought. Long Haochen's group of 3 stood dull for close to half an hour's time, gradually able to perceive streams of holy air rising around them. Above these 3 divine thrones came off a faintly discernible brilliant glint. The divine throne of eternity and creation that Long Haochen was facing was lit by a soft white light of softness. It was very faint-indeed. An indistinct connection started to form in the deepest part of Long Haochen's soul, and a fantastic feeling spread to him, as if something was calling out for his name. Long Haochen stood calm and unmoving, only going off to calmly sense the changes on this aura. His foremost feeling was peace, an incomparable peace. In a calm devoid of any distracting feelings, it seemed to be challenging Long Haochen's tolerance and immovability, while calmly connecting to him. What approached Long Haochen's senses was a boundlessness, an unbordered broadness. Such a feeling could only be matched by when he had seen Caia standing in that boundless night sky back in the Tower of Eternity. Only, while the starry skies do have a limit, the aura coming out from the divine throne of eternity and creation seemed devoid of the slightest boundary. Suddenly, a bright light shone upon the divine throne of terror and sadness. As it swept forward, Han Yu's body disappeared the next instant. These 6 divine throne sculptures were originally projections of the genuine divine thrones. Only by getting their approval shall one be able to get started in their trials process. But some holy knights actually don't even get any opportunity to even take the trial. Just when Han Yu had disappeared, another flash of light followed through, this time from the divine throne of knowledge and vigor, following which Zhong Fangfang also disappeared. Only Long Haochen stood at the same place, unmoving and still sensing calmly the aura of the divine throne of eternity and creation. Long Xingyu, still standing on the side, couldn't help but furrow his eyebrows. He knew very clearly that the earlier one would get the qualifications to be tested by a divine throne, the higher his affinity with the divine throne would be. Han Yu and Zhong Fangfang reached speeds that hardly differed from the young him from that time, which was to say that they were likely to be approved by their divine throne. But how could Long Haochen, whose domain reached the supreme level, as well as having a light god physique, still have yet to start with his own trial? Could the divine throne of eternity and creation really not be approving of him? Long Haochen was currently sunk deep into his own world, able to perceive that tranquil force in the midst of linking with his aura. But mysteriously, it seemed to be rejecting something, as a very uncomfortable feeling started to surge into Long Haochen's body. An image started to form in Long Haochen's brain. This white, boundless world contained a golden dazzling light. Contrasting with the surrounding tints of white, it seemed as if possibly about to dissolve at any time. But in the midst of this golden light, came two other colors, one of which Long Houchen was very familiar with, the purplish gold exclusive to Hao Yue's being. Although in the midst an expense of boundless white, those purplish gold rays gave off an aloof and remote feel, and in the confrontation, none of them seemed really able to suppress the other. It only came down to a continuous clash. This was Hao Yue's power, and was the divine throne of eternity, and creation rejecting that. Long Houchen was secretly overwhelmed with shock. If things were really so, what kind of choice would that come down for him to? Deep inside, Long Houchen started to struggle. Hao Yue was his companion, a blood-bound companion. Discarding Hao Yue would come down to causing his death. And the divine throne was a must in his eyes. As the Union's chairman, an unprecedented knight of ultimate gifts, being unable to gain the divine throne's approval would be a major blow to both his growth and prestige within the Union. Out of the two, which one to choose? Furthermore, there was not only that purplish golden rays rejection, but also another dark gold-colored gloss appeared within that golden glow. Compared to the purplish gold radiance, this dark gold radiance was far less eye-catching, but it similarly connected to the golden light originating from Long Houchen himself. And from its appearance, its intensity was not much less than the purplish golden light. The purplish gold originating from Hao Yue was part of the blood connection between them, a bloodline's power. But what was this dark gold? If that was also a bloodline's power, since when could it be that he had it? This dark gold was not representative of darkness, but it also gave off a feeling of extreme power. Moreover, a power that mainly came from the depths of Long Houchen's soul, in other words, intricately related to his very soul force. Long Houchen had never had an irresolute character, and thus made up his choice after short considerations. He chose Hao Yue. If a choice had to be made between the divine throne of eternity and creation and Hao Yue, he would still choose the latter. Hao Yue was not only his mount companion, but a good brother to Houchen. Even if the divine throne of eternity and creation was a supra-divine tool, that was still no more than a divine tool. When weighing the balance between a brother or a divine tool, the choice was not difficult at all in Houchen's mind. Even if that meant that he would get no divine throne, he would absolutely not give up on Hao Yue. In over 10 years, he had personally seen Hao Yue's growth bit after bit, during which time Hao Yue saved his life not only once or twice. They depended on each other, and helped each other to reach their current achievements. Hao Yue was his good brother, good companion, and would in no circumstances discard Houchen. This firm belief suddenly started to fluctuate in the midst of this land of fantasy. That purplish gold radiance enlarged, and although its volume was no match for the white light, its aura of loftiness and pride became even more domineering. Even the dark gold radiance followed suit, as if following Long Houchen's state of mind, without any autonomous features of its own. Under Long Houchen's firm belief, it appeared especially tenacious, supporting Hao Yue in resisting the white light. What should be a little clash became a mutual resistance. And it seemed that Houchen was drawing further and further from the divine throne of eternity and creation. Long Xingyu's anxiety became more and more intense. After 2 hours passed, Long Houchen's trial had still yet to begin. After such a long time, even if it had already started, then perhaps he. For a moment, Long Xingyu's heart became a total mess. Furthermore, he came to notice that the white light drifting from the statue representing divine throne of eternity and creation was getting more and more intense, yet faintly gave off an invading feel. And on Long Houchen's forehead, 9 lines of purplish gold came to view, faintly giving off an aura of devastation, as if withstanding that divine throne of eternity and creation. Houchen, just what are you doing? But no matter how worried Long Xingyu was, there was nothing he could do at all. Earning a divine throne's approval could only be done by one's own efforts, so he could only stand there looking on in anxiety. Time passed very fast, and in a blink of an eye, it had already been 1 day. Han Yu and Zhong Fangfang's trials were unknown, but contrariwise Long Xingyu was at ease for them, as after one would get taken into a divine throne's trial, the longer it lasted, the higher their chances. As for Long Houchen, maybe he no longer had an opportunity. Long Xingyu actually had already resolved himself, and as time passed, the purplish gold color expanding from Long Houchen's forehead and confronting the divine throne of eternity and creation started to get more and more intense. Although that purplish-golden radiance could amazingly stand its ground against the divine throne of eternity and creation, this also meant that it was only becoming harder for Long Houchen to gain the acknowledgement of the divine throne in front of him. His heart of eternity was pulsing quietly, and the holy aura dispersed around him was very clean. That kind of purity even brought continuous sensations of insight to Long Xingyu, who was staying nearby. Only, his too nervous self had no thoughts of grasping these insights. If that won't do, just end it. When Long Houchen would break through the second rank of ninth step to the third, there should be a chance. Long Xingyu gasped secretly, unaware of why Long Houchen was supporting that purplish-golden radiance with such dedication. Based on his own experience, should Long Houchen just consent to discard that purplish-gold radiance's power, the divine throne's power would be released, thus initiating Long Houchen's trial. In the time of 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, Long Houchen still didn't move in the least, resisting again and again. By chance, that was only his aura and thoughts resisting, and not spiritual energy. Otherwise, given the folklore behind the divine throne of eternity and creation, although Long Houchen's cultivation was not weak, that was still not enough for him to resist in any way. Long Houchen felt he was in a special mode. These 3 days were not wasted. In his mind, he felt his soul continuously sublimating in the confrontation, as that aura of dark gold blended in, continuously integrating itself into his soul. This was a wonderful feeling, just like when he had originally undergone his awakening of light. Only, it didn't give off that kind of feeling of connection with the goddess of light. Long Houchen knew that perhaps there was no way he would obtain acknowledgement from the divine throne, but his soul could make an evolution, thus achieving progress in the training of soul force, which was an area no one had ever studied. Part 2 end here.